Hello, check, check, check. How does it sound? Can everybody hear me? I was having some trouble here getting my transceiver to work, or my receiver I should say, with my microphone set up here. The power button wasn't generating, or like wasn't working for some reason, so I was running diagnostic tests on it, and even the diagnostic was like saying, you know, hey, I had immediately thought like, oh great, you know, like the power button on this thing is jacked, and I'm not going to be able to actually, you know, check it or use this thing now. Thankfully, I had done a factory reset on all of the systems. I had done a firmware update on all of the software and everything, and then after I had done all of that, the thing booted up. Super strange why it was working, and then all of a sudden I go to start and then it's not, but it's what it is. But anyhow, hope everybody is having a good weekend so far. Today we're going to be taking a look at some MASK goodness. I have quite a bit of things of MASK in my collection, so I figured we would take a look at some of that stuff and kind of spit some random MASK knowledge out, and that's what we're going to be doing today. Just going to grab a couple of things here. Well, alright, so I guess the first thing that we will get into right away waiting for this to load here. Alright, so I have official dates now. So we're looking at the 13th of September and the 14th of September. I'm going to be tabling at I will be there with my book. Hopefully I should have 2 books out by that time. If not, definitely going to have other things available for people to get, you know, from me. I'm going to have books, prints, stickers, other things like that. So, you know, your general things that you would see people selling at cons, you know, I'm definitely going to have. And then as well, you know, I'm going to be kind of just networking, making the rounds, talking to everyone. So, you know, feel free to come out this summer, come say hi, hang out, all that good stuff. ADAPTATION, baby, let's go. Alright. So when it comes to the MASK, obviously everybody is more or less familiar with the movie, I would say, and not when it comes to the actual comics itself. So that's when I kind of figured that would be a good time to kind of actually look into this stuff and, you know, just do a little bit of observations about the series itself, between the movie and the comic a little bit. I'll talk about the video game that had come out for the Super Nintendo. A little bit of the toys, and then we'll call it. All right. So when it comes to the MASK, the very first appearance technically was in APA 5, which was in 1982. That was a like anthology fanzine sort of thing. I believe that was. You know, something that like Frank Miller and whatnot was involved in it as well. Good luck finding copies of this thing out there. From my understanding, there was like 250 of those things printed, and that was back in '82. So if anybody does have them, you know, they're holding on to them. Never seen them on eBay or anything like that. But that's the very first appearance technically of the MASK, and that was, you know, a Mike Richardson creation there from Dark Horse Comics. And then technically, I guess the actual the actual comic that people would know of in terms of the way that we know the Mask would be here, would be in Mayhem #1. This is where he started to finally get that, you know, that green mask look that everybody kind of knows. But alas, I have here the very first, gotta fix the camera here, the very first print of the Mask in an actual story element. So this is going to be Dark Horse Presents #10, and this was when, you know, Mike Richardson, I guess, was more or less not really involved with it, and we start getting, you know, Mark Badger and Tim Harkins on here. And then when the series actually goes into the Mask that everybody kind of knows, that's when Accruti and all those dudes kind of come in and, you know, take over the series more or less. Obviously, I'm a big fan of anthology books. That's why I'm making them. But Dark Horse Presents is probably up there with my favorite anthology books. So let's go ahead and get in here to the Mask. So if you're not familiar with how the Mask originally looked, this is it here. So like I said, this is technically the very first story that the Mask was ever involved in. There was a drawing of him in ATA 5 back in 1982, but this had come out when, what is this, 85, I think this is, 87, sorry, so still pretty early in the grand scheme of things. You can definitely tell that he has that, still kind of has like that Mask design to him a little bit, but definitely gets changed out. I can turn the music down. That should be better there. One of the reasons why I really like this art so much, it reminds me of like Serial Killer almost, if that makes sense. Just crazy, just like ransom notes, I guess is like the best way to describe it. That's what I see anyways when I kind of look at this. You can see what I mean though, the art, especially over on this page, it's just wild. So you do get a handful of pages in here, and you really don't get you know, much like background as to what it is. But you know, he's straight up decapitating people. I think we lost our camera here. Gonna try to get it spun back up here for you. There we go. All right. So just straight up decapitation here. So, you know, stuff that's right up my alley. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. I think that I wish they kind of kept this sort of aesthetic going throughout the series. Obviously, once it gets into the Mask that everybody kind of knows, this sort of goes away. MASK, K-Mask. So, let's go ahead and take a look at, I have a bunch of this stuff, so we're just going to run through it, take a look at it. So then I have the next one here, so I have a number 11 as well. And we got him right on the cover on this one. Gotta fix our camera here after the restart. And we're just gonna start up right with them. And you can kind of start seeing a little bit more of like that Mask aesthetics are coming through, like this, I don't know what we would call it, like jazz swing aesthetic. really nice female figures that he's drawing. Very, very unique style. Yeah, his cartooning here is pretty good. I'm gonna bring this in closer to the camera so you can see it. But just the way that like his nose is pressing up against the ground, the gun going to the back of his head. It's pretty good cartooning there. Same thing with the hand, honestly. Very good cartooning. So we start getting into the, the jazz theme a little more here. And that, like I said, that's kind of like an ongoing thing throughout the MASK series, even in like the movies and whatnot. Once we get further into the 90s, obviously it turns more into swing than it does jazz, but they still try to keep that aesthetic going at least a little bit. This is a crazy panel. I really like all the ink splatter and whatnot that's going on there. I think it's like a kind of a cheat code to drawing buildings without having to get super detailed with them. Just hit it with a lot of the ink. Alright, let's go ahead and head on to the next one here then. So we're going to keep with early MASK theming stuff here. So this is going to be Dark Horse Presents Volume 1. So this was like the very first collected edition of Dark Horse that they had done. So this is kind of like a greatest hits sort of thing. I want to say this came out in the late 80s. Let's see, I could be completely wrong actually. This could be... It's hard to tell because this paper is so yellowed. Okay, so it looks like 08, actually. So my fucking dates were completely wrong there. Which, I don't know if that's actually the case. No, that can't be right. I think I just read something wrong here. Yeah, it's 89 is when this came out, because I'm like looking at this logo. Like, there's no way this is from 2008. I was just reading the wrong thing. Terrible. Okay. So let's go ahead. So this is MASK here. So Concrete definitely has that aesthetic too a little bit. Black Cross. Where's the MASK stuff in this? Here we go. Check that out, man. It's just good art. And honestly, like this Dark Horse Presents book, I highly recommend it if you already don't own it. You can get it fairly cheap. It's not the most expensive thing in the world. We only get 2 pages of MASK in this thing. But if you're not familiar with Black Cross, let's go back to this here real quick so I can show you guys this. And then Mr. Monster, it's one of my favorites. Mr. Monster is really good too. But Black Cross is kind of has like this like outlaw aesthetic to it, you know what I mean? Just like this dude right here. Kind of like generic, just like badass dude. But it works, man. Kind of like your, Punisher ripoff, I guess. I'm not too familiar with actually Black Cross outside of Dark Horse Presents stuff, so. Alright, so let's go ahead and roll into this then. So this is the MASK Omnibus. So this is going to be more of the series, I guess, that people are going to be familiar with. That's going to be more incongruent with the actual movie itself, or I should say that the movie is based off of. So this is a pretty thick boy. You can get this on like Amazon. You can still find it readily available in comic shop. This is something that they typically keep in print, so it's not something that's super hard to find necessarily. So we're just gonna go ahead and we're just gonna flip through this a little bit here. We're at least gonna take a look at the first issue or so of the Mask, so that way you can get a general idea of, you know, what we're gonna be looking at here. So again, John Acrudi, Doug Monkey, so on and so forth here that we got. And I believe that he had done lettering with a marker with this. I had listened to an interview a while back when I had originally done this, because believe it or not, this was going to be a more like elaborate thing, and I had filmed like 2 hours worth of footage for this, and I just decided to can it and do something else with it. So all right, so we can see here where Stanley Ipkiss goes in, gets his mask from the pawn shop here, and he's more or less getting it for you know, his girlfriend for her birthday, I believe is what the whole thing was is here. He's doing it for a gift. And of course, you know, Stanley Ipkiss, he's just kind of a pushover, so he just gets bullied a lot. So, you know, he's leaving the store, he's basically getting jumped here by a bunch of dudes. Skinheads, I believe they're technically just a bunch of Nazis. And then you can see he starts getting like fantasies and whatnot about, like, you know, if I wasn't a little punk, I would actually, you know, stand up for myself. And he's kind of imagining like blowing these dudes' brains out and whatnot. So he's like, you know, who would actually care if these people were fucking dead, right? They're Nazis. Ruh-roh. Okay, cool. OBS is giving me some trouble. But yeah, this like kind of aesthetic, this like Art Deco, definitely carries over into the movie. But yeah, she's telling him like, hey, you know, you gotta stop being such a loser, dude, and start, you know, standing up for yourself a little bit. And then of course he can't help himself. You know, he puts the mask on because he feels, you know, drawn to it. Boom. Now he's into Big Head, that everybody kind of knows as this green head character. The movie definitely has a lot of this aesthetic in terms of like the coloring, and that's one of the things that I believe they actually got like an Oscar for set design for that movie. But it's just like how actual like comic booky the actual set design is, and that's something that I can pull here actually and show off a little bit. Okay. So it's like when it comes to like the set design in that movie, you know what I mean? It's so 90s, but it's like it fits perfectly for what the actual universe is for what they're trying to do. And if you guys had seen my thumbnail, I had pulled this Taz pillow. Ever since I was a kid, just for whatever reason, whenever I think about this movie, this pillow is just like ingrained into my mind for whatever reason. And then, of course, you know, we're in the Bongo Club here. Just flawless set design. Out here in the street, you know, when he's Cuban Pete going on here, just again, I can't remember where they filmed this stuff at. I want to say that they had filmed it in Chicago. And then some of the stuff, like the actual outside of the club, that was someplace in LA, I want to say. The actual name of the place, did I write this down? Doesn't look like it, but when we actually get to, you know, speaking a little bit about the movie, when we get into the comic, we'll definitely dive a little more deeper into it here. Cool beans. It's good enough. Alright, let's get back to where we were here. Man, this comic is just so good. Alright, so he basically is gonna go out here and he's just gonna, you know, do what he was basically imagining. He's gonna go out here and tell these neo-Nazi skinhead punks what the fuck is up. Well, they try to run his ass over. Well, he gets run over with the car, and just the cartooniness here, and then obviously it's just, he's fine. He's not hurt, right? So then now we've established that you can't do anything to the guy. So now he's gonna go down to the garage here and go fuck with these skinheads. Cartooning here is so good. Right here too. See so much Kurtzman in this. Like, you know, Mad Magazine style. That's what I see when I look at that drawing. But this is super violent, especially compared to the movie in the grand scheme of things. And we'll definitely talk about, you know, why they had done that, which clearly had done it to sell more to kids. But look at this, man. He's literally just going off with a MAC-10 and just exit wounds out the back on this dude. So good. And I'm just gonna rip this dude's nose off with a wrench. Man. Blow a hole straight through his stomach. That's some, like, hard-boiled stuff right there. So then his girlfriend wakes up, and then now he's just like, Stanley is just an old hardened war veteran now. Just look at him. He's like, just PTSD. Looks like he just came back from the Gulf War, about to go fuck some shit up. And you can see he like starts, you know, getting snappy with her and snaps back. And then realizes like, oh shit, like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. So we can see we're going down to the old car shop here. And if you guys are familiar with the movie, it's a pretty infamous scene here. So he goes down here and we're at these dumbass mechanics. So then he shows up with the muffler. And he's just going ham on all these people. And basically, people that were, you know, not doing their due diligence and, you know, just being shitty in general. Man. This is really killing me here. This camera just keeps dropping out. The Wi-Fi is like super weak today. So I apologize. Oh, man, come on. Work with me here. But yeah, we got, you know, just straight up some like Spawn shit going on here, and I wonder if Todd McFarlane was influenced by this drawing at all. If you know your Spawn lore, you know. Stanley Ipkiss is just still kind of going along here. And in the comics, you know, the Mask has several people. I'm trying to get this fixed here for you guys. Has several people that actually wear it. It's not just Stanley Ipkiss like it is in the movie. And then, of course, in the movie, he kind of comes off as like a hero, more or less. Make him a protagonist. Not in this story. So basically, she's trying to stop his ass because she's like, yo, my boyfriend's fucking nuts now. So she takes his ass out. Well, he got a hold of the Mask anyways. And now he's going on another spree. And you can see he's just murdering people, man. Just the amount of cops that this dude kills in this comic. It's actually kind of nuts. So here we go, here's Callahan. This is one of my favorite drawings here, just when he just gets blasted from all these cops. So he falls off the building, and then just in cartoony fashion, he just stops himself in midair, jacks this car, throws a grenade out, and then just blows up everybody that was chasing him. Now he's leaving, and this cop car has somebody in the back still locked up in it. So funny. So that eventually he's going to end up donning the mask here. So then he's still got this dude in the back of his cop car, right? Now he's just going to start driving through and just smashing through a fucking grocery store. Running people down. Still checks out. He's still giving them their money, at least. And then he just gets in this, just still going, just running people down, smashes the car in. So now he's got to get out. So now he's got an axe. So he can just kind of will things into existence. He's a fucking cartoon character, basically. In this shot where he's up on top of the car with the flamethrowers, it's so good. Yeah, just like all these shots, man. The cartooning is just crazy. And this panel right here is just something that I try to get all the time. I don't understand, like, just how fucked that face looks. And now that I'm looking at it, I kind of understand what's going on a little. Got that Kirby dot going. So definitely some Kirby influence going on there with the comic. Alright, so Stanley gets home, has a mask off, you know, he's sleeping, he's like, I'm just gonna chill while his girlfriend's got it now, and she fucking gunned his ass down. So you can kind of see this is kind of like the thing in the story is it continuously gets held to other people because it just makes you do crazy shit. So Stanley Epicus is donezo now, he's dead. So you can see that, like, 2-3 issues in, what they did 3 issues, I think, of the mask before he was finally toast. Because, you know, we're 50 pages in here. So we got Calloway, Detective Calloway. This is a beautiful cartoon shot here. It's like straight out of EC Comics. So then she's like, fuck, man, I gotta get rid of this. I'm gonna turn it in for evidence. So then now here's how he gets a hold of it. And then now he's gonna start going all crazy with it. So then he starts to realize, like, oh, I don't feel any pain with this, and, you know, shoots himself in the fucking hand. But I think that's probably where we're going to wrap it up here, though, because it's, you know, we're starting to get into the weeds a little bit. But as you can see, this is a super fucking thick book. You know, it's a big chunky boy. So if you already don't own this, you can find it on, like, Amazon. You can still find it in comic shops. They still try to keep this thing somewhat into print. You can get it pretty cheap. I think, like, Amazon, you can get it for, like, 25 bucks, 30 bucks. So... Alright, so let's get into this. I got the movie adaptations. So this is kind of where the fun is going to start kind of coming into here. We've looked at what the original mask kind of looked like. We have looked at, you know what, like the second iteration with the mask, the big head, everybody kind of knows. Now let's kind of take a look at the actual movie adaptation of the comic compared to the comic, compared to the movie. We're getting real meta now, but that was kind of the point of this video that I wanted to do. So let's go ahead and pull up some stuff here. Because we're going to get into some of this movie goodness now. Alright, so The Mask, it was shot in '93. Let's go ahead and pull this. Okay, so The Mask, it was shot in '93 and was released in '94. It had a $20 million budget, and it made $351 million, so it was extremely successful in the grand scheme of things. Chuck Russell was the director on the movie. This is Chuck Russell here. So he was the director of the movie, and he had done a bunch of movies, some that you're probably very, very familiar with here. One of which, if I can find it, oh boy, did I lose it. Terrible. Oh, here it is. Anyhow, so he had done Dream Warriors, which is probably one of my favorite Freddy Krueger movies. I think the first one and the third one are probably my two favorites. So he was, he was at New Line Cinema, who of course was the ones who ended up putting out this movie. So he was directors for the most part, and he'd also done The Blob from the 80s, which I think is one of the best movies that had come out around that time. And he had done Eraser in the 90s with Arnold, and then of course, like I was saying, he had done The Blob as well. So The Blob is one of my favorite horror movies. If you haven't seen it, you have to watch it. The special effects in that movie are fucking nuts, man. Alright. Let's go ahead and drop it back here. So then, of course, this shot from the movie, it is more or less inspired from, Texarkana Texarkana, Jesus Christ. Tex Avery. Your cartoon fame. I have a handful of Tex Avery things in my collection, but not a lot. I'm not a big fan of his, but this was, the reference to that cartoon here. And of course, we had looked in the comic when we had seen, this scene when he had gone into the motorcycle shop with the muffler shop, and stuffed the muffler down the dude's fucking throat. That doesn't happen in the movie, but this is, that section or that scene from that. We definitely will see some of that when we get into the comic itself, for sure. And then the Tommy gun scene, we had seen that a little bit, where he's like, and now it's my Tommy gun. So we got that here, and it's just one of those things that they pulled directly from the comic, and it was straight into the movie, so it completely makes sense. Let's see here. And then one of the things that, let's go ahead and close this. One of the things that I love about the movie in general is how they continue to try to keep it cartoony. The cartooniness definitely stays in tune with the cartooniness of the actual comic, And who else better to get to do that besides Jim Carrey? From my understanding, you know, they went down the lines to try to get Rick Moranis. They've dealt with trying to get like Martin Short, Nick Cage at one point, Matthew Broderick at one point was slotted in. Basically, if Jim Carrey wasn't going to be the guy, it was going to be Matt Broderick. Apparently, was like the next dude who was signed on if Jim wasn't going to end up doing it. Man, could you imagine that as like Matt Broderick? I don't know if that's like physical comedy is really his forte. And then when you talk about the mask, I mean, you have to talk about just the crazy special effects that are in it. So ILM was the company that had done the effects on this, and you know, if you're not familiar with ILM, it's like, what are you gonna say about it? But Greg Cannon was the makeup artist that was done onto this, and you know, the dude is, it's like, what else can you say about him? But alright, let's go ahead and let's pull into some more of the comic here. And get into this. So they did 2 of them. It was a 2-part series. And then as well, you know, they also had like the cartoon and all that good stuff, which we're also going to be talking about. Give me a moment here. The camera is about to die and I gotta plug it in. Alright, let's go ahead and get into this bad boy. So I think I actually had to write down who even did this. Killian Plunkett and Bruce Patterson. It's because they tried to make the credits for the comic to even kind of look like the movie. So they're in like this, you know, like the movie style poster. So you have to like read through this to find like the pencil or an inker, and they're over here finally. But they kind of talk about the origins of the mask itself, so you can kind of see it was actually a Viking thing. That's how it come over. Here we go, and here's, you know, the dudes kind of scuba diving. They find it. We got Stanley Ipkiss here, so if you're, you know, in the movie, Stanley Ipkiss is he's still kind of a pushover, but he's still kind of has that likable personality. Obviously, you have to do that for a movie, and then plus they had to make it, you know, more kid friendly, and that was something that the director had, you know, had come up with, is because it's like, we're here to make money, right? And it's like, if you're too violent, that ain't gonna make the money. So. Cameron Diaz is a little whack in terms of the likeness. I mean, Jim Carrey kind of gets a little funky too in some places. But I think that Jim Carrey would kind of be a harder person to draw, just simply because his facial expressions are still all over the place. But that also might help in terms of the cartooniness of everything. So here we go, going into the Coco Bongo, into that club. Like I said, I think this actual club itself was in LA. I think it was in Riverside, I think, where it was shot at. And just the aesthetic of the movie and just the world of the mask, how it kind of has like that stuck in the 50s, 60s sort of look, but it's still kind of 90s, kind of futuristic. It's very hard to explain. But I really like the art aesthetic of the mask. So here we go. So we're starting to get into when he's actually, you know, his shitty ass landlord lady. We're getting into all that nonsense. So this is honestly a really cool drawing. This the cartooniness of the mask kind of pulling over his face. His jaw down here is kind of wonky. I will say that. But wow, here's a Tex Avery reference back here. So of course we saw this. We just pulled that up and kind of took a look at all of this from the movie itself, from the screenshots. And it's pretty spot on, man. Smash to the clock. Classic scene. Yeah. Just his cartooniness. So good. And this is his special attack from the video game. And that was something, the video game that we're going to kind of take a look at some screenshots, and we're going to talk about the company that actually had put out that game and what they have done in the past. They got a pretty good track record. And of course, the Tommy gun scene, classic. Again, the muffler scene, classic. Completely different in the comic than it is to the movie, that is for certain. And we have established that. But yep, this is pretty much the movie almost to a T. There's some differences, but not a lot. Yeah, I don't know anybody who would want to listen to the Mask's soundtrack. But of course, good old Allred, one of my all-time favorites. Just advertising the Mask here. Because that's the thing. This adaptation had come out before the actual movie itself, so that does happen. So that happened with Mignola when he was working on Dracula too. He was saying that they were giving him scripts and daily screens from the movie, like stills, and basically he had to go off of that alone, and that's all they would give him. So he had like really no idea what the actual movie was, because he had to have the comic out and done before the movie was finished. So it's kind of weird how that works sometimes. Fucking Badger, I can't with that comic. I don't get it. Alright. So then, of course, in 90s fashion, they had fucking Mask trading cards. If you go on eBay, it's like there's just mountains of these postings of trading cards. Alright, so now we're going to be rolling into number 2 here. So now we're getting into, you know, the bank heist stuff, into the actual club where all of the actual stuff that people would more or less recognize from the movie starts happening. And like, I guess, like the iconic yellow suit, all that kind of stuff. And again, just fantastic cartooning to really get that dance scene across. When he just starts transforming into all the different characters, it's so funny. So then this is, of course, like where he smokes and blows the arrow through the heart, which they neglect to put in here, and I wonder why. Just gonna get this going again here, some music. Weird ice effect, though. I don't know how. Probably would have used a different color. Probably should have used more of a blue than that white, because that looks questionable. Good stuff, man. This comic has some pretty good lettering in it, I will say that. Just all the different styles, and especially like actually using it onto a drawing within the illustration itself. I really like seeing people do that. So this is kind of cool how they give him more like sharper like monster teeth. Of course, Milo, I believe is his name, gets the mask on here. He's gonna go to town. Another classic thing, and I bet you this was so much fun to draw, just the nonsense guns. Ironically, very McFarlane. And then, of course, he's like, I'm done with this, and throwing it over the end. And that's the thing with, like, this comic, I can say, man, Time Cop, it really doesn't, like, bring the movies, because obviously Jim Carrey brings a lot to the movie, but like the personality, I guess, of the movie itself really doesn't come through a lot in the comic, if that makes sense. Like the art aesthetic is there, but it's still missing something. It's kind of hard to put my finger on exactly what it is. But I don't know, maybe like the coloring possibly it could have been different. Seems like it's too muted in some places. Okay, let's get into some real nerdy shit here. So, if you guys are all aware, I'm a big fan of Space Ghost, and Space Ghost Coast to Coast is one of those shows that is really near and dear to me. This is something that, if you're a Space Ghost collector, you need to add into your collection. So if you've had this on VHS before in the past, you should already know. Jim Carrey had done a Coast to Coast interview specifically to put onto the end of this VHS. So at the very end of this VHS, there is a Coast to Coast interview with Jim Carrey that he had done with Space Ghost. So this is the main reason why I have it in my collection. It is strictly because, like, that's how, you know, far into the weeds I am with Space Ghost. It's like I wanted to own this. So if you're into Space Ghost like I am, you know, this is something that you should add to your collection. It's just one of those weird oddities. But of course you can't go wrong. So I just keep this kind of, you know, displayed in my studio here on the shelf. But let's go ahead and take a look at some other stuff here. Just gonna get all of our goodiness ready. All right. Cool. So we're going to talk about the game a little bit here. So then we have Black Pearl Software. So Black Pearl Software, they had done a bunch of things in the past, obviously, besides just the straight up NES, or sorry, the Super Nintendo Mask game. They had done Toy Story Super Nintendo game, which is pretty fond. People, you know, I guess, really seem to like this one. I don't believe I remember playing this. From what I remember, I played the PS1 Toy Story game, but nonetheless, good track record. SimCity 2000, like, okay, awesome. Shaq Fu, like, okay, awesome. Oh, Urban Strike, Jungle Strike. So you can see what I mean here. And then of course, their magnum opus. Can't forget. Super Star Wars Return of the Jedi. I have a love-hate relationship with these Super Nintendo Star Wars games. They're so good and they're all so bad at the same time. They're just super hard for no fucking reason. It's like a big thing for me on it. But yeah, I mean, the game itself, if you've never played it before, it's honestly really good in terms of the mask. It's pretty basic, but you just run around and you just shoot your fucking air horn off at people and it does damage to them. That's pretty much it. And then of course when it comes to the movie, of course we have to have games, and of course we have to have toys too. So this was, when I think of the Mask is the Mask Mobile, I believe this was specifically for the actual movie and not the animated series, because there were two different toy lines. It was Toy Island, which is like a spin-off of Kenner, I want to say. But this was the only way that you could have gotten a little Milo, was if you had purchased it through this a 2-pack. You can kind of see here, this is what it would look like outside of the packaging here. At one point in time, I owned this, but I had sold it off a couple of years ago. But as you can see, this is a different Milo. So it's just those weird toy things that you kind of run into, and you can see that this was specifically a Kenner release thing. But this is a weird ass toy, man. Some of these Mask toys are strange. And then of course, if you're going to be talking about good old Mask, you have to bring this fucking beauty of a thing up. Okay, so this is going to be a hot button topic, I think. So here we go with the Son of the Mask. So this is where I land on it. Obviously, they were trying to capitalize on something, you know, pretty much like 10 years after the fact. Jamie Kennedy, I think it gets unfairly shit on, especially because of this movie. The dude didn't write the movie. He's purely an actor. He was hired on to do what was in the script, so on and so forth. And I honestly don't think his performance is bad. And for the most part, I think Jamie Kennedy can be funny, and is funny. And I think he's a good actor. It's like, you know, he's done things like Scream, Romeo and Juliet, so on and so forth. So the dude has chops. And I think unfortunately, you know, this movie did kind of ruin his career, but I think it's kind of bullshit, to be honest with you. I think he's kind of unfairly treated because of such. But, you know, when you start looking at the actual aesthetic of the movie, you can kind of get how it ruined you can get how it kind of ruined this guy's career. I honestly don't know what to say about it. It's like the hair is just terrible, especially when you like look at it like this. It's like the makeup is just bad. Like the glue is like coming undone. Like it just looks terrible. Like I don't understand like why they made rubber plastic hair. And then of course his last name is Avery. Just good old cartoon throwbacks there. And then, of course, they have to go above and beyond with the dog gets it, the baby gets it, you know what I mean? So they jump the shark in this movie, and again, it's not Jamie Kennedy's fault that the movie's bad. It's purely just the director's standpoint, the studio standpoint, what they wanted to do. But yeah, folks, it ain't a good movie, but unfortunately, like I said, I think Jamie Kennedy gets unfairly shit on, you know, because of it. So it is what it is. But yeah, I've watched that movie maybe once, and I have zero purpose to go watch it again. But if you think that Jamie Kennedy is a clown, you know, because of this movie and whatnot, like I said, it's like actually go watch something that he has done, and dude's got chops. So. All right, so I think that's probably where we're going to wrap it up. I wanted to go for about an hour, and that's definitely where we hit. So I think that's where we're gonna end up wrapping it up. I don't think that we really got into anything. Oh, well, now here's something that we can talk about real quick while we're still a little bit on the subject of like the mask, and the son of the mask. So the mask, they had done $351 million on a $20 million budget. The son of the mask, they're on a $100 million budget, and they made $59 million. So they lost more than half when you talk about marketing and all that kind of stuff. So oof. Was not good for the studio, that's for sure. When we talk about the cartoon a little bit, that ran from 95 to 97. It did 3 seasons. It ran for. That was on CBS, and then of course Rob Paulsen was the voice actor for that, and he's done everything from Turtles to Animaniacs, Justice League, you know, you name it. The dude's been. Was he in Justice League? I don't think so, but you know, he's been all over the place. So yes, sir. But yeah, I think that's where we're gonna call it. Next week, I don't know honestly what we're gonna end up doing for the stream. I'm kind of contemplating maybe dragging my setup over to my actual like drawing desk and maybe doing something there again. It's been a little while since I've done like an art stream. I might lay down some do some drawings or something and put some screen tone over it. I see a lot of people ask about screen tones a lot, especially in like groups and stuff that I'm in. I use a lot of screen tones, so that's something that we definitely could possibly take a look at. But yeah, we'll see, and you know we'll have the update up for the weekly update like I always do up on the channel. So then I'll definitely post up there probably what we're going to be taking a look at. But yeah, I think that's probably where we're going to end up calling it. And I hope everybody has a good rest of your weekend, and we'll see everyone next week. Thanks for hanging out, talking.